welcome to the Rundlett and Baldacci report. I want to speak about our last show, which was about the Trump case. We specifically wanted to shoot the show before the closing argument so that none of us would be influenced by what we might see or hear on television. We had Ethan Strimling on our show, one of the most prominent Democrats in Maine. We had David Jones, who is considered to be Trump's #1 person here in Maine. I predicted a not guilty verdict in less than 5 hours. My dear friend Rob predicted a hung jury, which was the prediction of most of the attorneys and pundits in America. I was wrong. The jury came back in about 6 hours with a guilty verdict on all 34 counts. In my humble opinion, Trump said that this case was politically motivated, and I agree. The reason why I agree, folks, is because the district attorney who ran in that case, his campaign promise was, I'm going to get Trump. He didn't say he was going to eliminate crime in New York City and people going around and punching women in the face. No, he went after a man who's running for president of the United States. Imagine Stephanie Anderson, one of the best district attorneys we've ever had in the state, saying, I'm running and I'm going after Janet Mills. I'm going right after. She's running for governor and I'm going to go after Janet Mills. Well, folks, I think it was politically motivated, just like I think the Biden case is politically motivated. I do not think it should stand on appeal. I think the judge should have recused himself. He donated money to the Biden campaign. His daughter works for the Democratic Party. Imagine somebody being charged with a crime of robbing the Key Bank to find out that the judge used to be on the board of directors and his daughter now works for Key Bank up in Brunswick. You think there's a conflict there? I spoke with a very well-versed man in ethics, taught ethics at the University of Michigan Law School. His name is Bob Hirschhorn, former president of the American Bar Association. I asked him point blank, do you think there was a conflict between the judge trying that case? He goes, well, there was at least an appearance of it. So that's where we stand. We'll go up on appeal, and we'll see what happens from there. But now let's move to this show. I've been doing this show for 20 years, covering all topics from presidential candidates, gubernatorial candidates, law shows. But this show is probably going to be the most emotional for me, because I think the worst thing that's going on in world history in many years is what's going on in Gaza and Ukraine. Rob, please introduce our guests.
Thank you, Derry, and appreciate your opening comments. I don't really agree with you. But,
admitting that I was wrong?
Yeah, no, I know, but that's okay. I respect your opinion. Don't happen to agree with some of what you said.
That's the only thing we agree on.
But our focus today is the war in Palestine, Gaza, and could open up into the Golan Heights and the West Bank, the way things are going. But I can't think of two more interesting people to have on the show who have lived in the Middle East, who are passionate about it, who have family there. Imad Khalidi, who is the founder of Auto Europe. Imad, thank you for being here. Imad was born in Jerusalem.
Auto Europe? Unbelievable. That's huge.
And I want you to talk a little bit about your background and how you came to America and your feelings, obviously, with what's going on in your homeland. And Timmy Wilson, who I've known forever. Tim is one of the early founders and directors of the famous Seeds of Peace camp that brought Israelis and Palestinians kids together to work together, to play together, to understand each other's cultures, and all in an effort to promote peace. And you've been doing it for generations now, Tim, and continue to do it. So I'd like to ask you both to give a little bit of your background, and then we can talk about some of the issues that are ongoing right now in Israel. Imad, let me start with you. Talk a little bit about your upbringing, your childhood in Palestine, and what brought you here.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be next to Tim. Two different races, two different cultures, and we'll have a nice discussion today about what's happening, unbiased, down in Palestine, as Gaza and Israel, both of them. I was born in Jerusalem in 1951 from a family called the Khalidi family. We are one of the biggest families in Jerusalem. My grandfather was the last.
One of the 5 families.
My grandfather was the last mayor of Jerusalem in 1944, 1945.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Oh, my God.
And he was also Supreme Justice
He was a Supreme Court justice?
Exactly, both of them. So my mother sent me to a Jesuit school called Jean Baptiste de La Salle. That's where I speak French, English, Arabic. I learned Hebrew by myself, and I speak some Italian and Spanish. So I left Jerusalem, and from 1951 to 1967, we were under the Jordanian mandate. I would call it Jordanian occupation more than anything else. That's when Jerusalem, East Jerusalem was still under the Jordanian control. In 67, the war happened, 6 days war.
Right.
We thought that we will invade, the Arabs will invade Israel. Nothing happened. We were invaded by Israel.
And when was that? What year?
67. June
Okay,
67.
right. Yeah.
And one day we saw the tanks from the Israeli army coming into the Mount of Olives down there.
Tanks coming through the Mount of Olives, where I've been.
We thought it was...
Imagine that sight.
Exactly. We thought it was Iraqis coming to help us.
Oh, really? It was the Israelis.
I lived 4 or 5 years in Jerusalem. I could not make it. I graduated as a chemistry major in Birzeit College, and I left to France. In France, I worked for the Holiday Inn, I worked for Hertz, I worked for Renault, and then one of my smallest...
Renault, is that, you said Renault,
yeah, Renault.
The car, of course,
Exactly.
Renault.
One of my smallest accounts was Auto Europe, based in Camden, Maine. So he offered me a job of taking over the marketing, etc. So I flew from Paris to Camden, Maine, where there is only one light.
Right.
Sunday, everything is
Paid in
closed.
place. Paid in place.
I worked
That's
it
right.
out, and then from Camden, Maine, we moved to Portland. Today, it's a company of, in 2019, pre-COVID, we were 600 employees, $600 million sales. I opened in Munich, Lisbon, Sydney, more offices to do most international bookings for cars all over the world.
Well, I can't
It's a
believe that.
phenomenal story.
I can't believe that you have no experience doing anything. What an incredible history. Ken, tell us about you.
Timmy.
Just let me finish one
Oh,
thing.
no, I'm sorry.
The American dream is there, and I
Yes.
really want to tell the young generation. I came here with $500 in my pocket. Now you can add so many zeros.
Yes,
in
that's
front
right.
of the $500. The American dream is an opportunity. Grab it, work it hard, ethically, and it pays off.
And you said
Amen.
that you open your business to people that are recovering, correct?
40% of
How many percent?
40% of what
40% of the
comes
people
from recovery, rehab homes.
What a wonderful man you
Wonderful.
are. Go ahead, my friend.
Thank you, Imad. Tim.
The best way to put this is I'm going to do Seeds of Peace in my involvement for 31 years.
Right.
In 1993, John Wallach and a woman, Bobby Gottschalk, they're
Right.
co-founders. Bobby lives, as part of her time, she lives up in near Augusta, and she did camping and stuff in Maine. And she and John got together at a book club thing, and John was talking about the Middle East and what had happened with the first Trade Center bombing in March of 1993. He decided that he wanted to do something, so he collected art. So he took some of his art, talked to the Palestinian Authority, the ambassador to Israel and Egypt, and decided he wanted to do something. So he came to a man here, and his name was Dr. Joel Bloom,
Right.
because his son had been a camper at Powhatan, the camp. So in August, the last couple weeks in August of 1993, the camp started. And at that camp, there were 45 boys coming from Israel, Palestine, and Egypt. And he got them to agree to do that. That started Seeds of Peace. We wound up on the front lawn of the Rose Garden that September. And at that particular time, that's the beginning for Seeds of Peace, because we were all over television because of those 45, actually 47, because there were 2 Americans. They were right there.
Right. And
Who was
Tim,
president then?
Yeah, right.
At
At that time, it was Arkansas.
Clinton.
Yeah.
Tim, and your background is athletics. You were a great coach for the University of Maine. No, you were. Your freshman team that you coached could beat the second team of the University of Maine. By the way, one of my dearest friends from Bowdoin and Orono High School, one of the greatest athletes from Orono High School, played football for Bowdoin. Played against the University of Maine in 1965, and unfortunately had an injury. I won't name what it is, but it involves the human body and male parts, and therefore never played football again. And it happened in the University of Maine game, and I think you were the coach. I don't put blame on you. The one thing I want to ask you first, Tim, you're watching all this unfold on television. Are you personally hurt by this? Are you upset by it? Is it causing you day-to-day problems for you?
Well, first of all, I deal with kids. I don't get into policy. He knows. My job has always been developing leadership within the framework of kids, males and females. We started out with only males in 93 and 94, Queen Noor and Barbara Streisand and Haneen Ashwari. I mean, they sat right in front of me after we were on.
Barbara Streisand?
Oh yeah, they were in front of me.
Barbara Streisand was there?
Yeah.
Sorry.
But they were all there, and they looked at me and said, Queen Noor said, we're going to have girls at camp next year. It wasn't, can we? We are.
Oh my God, that's a great story.
So in 1994,
that's fantastic.
We had girls come to camp. We went from 46 to 124.
What?
Kids, and we had Jordan, and we Morocco, and we added, the other, what we call the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Out of that, I guess the best way of putting it is the young people who were there, and in later years, they're adults now, children, businesses, lawyers, whatever. And their parents, I got to know because I actually lived in East Jerusalem. And I started going over there really in 1998. But after John passed away in July of 2002, the board people knew that we had to keep our programming going all year round. And I wound up going over there. I would spend 6 months there and then come back here and run camp. So I was doing both of those. And
Seeds of Peace.
Seeds of Peace.
But Tim, Derry was asking a question in terms of looking at what's happening now in Gaza, in Palestine. What are your feeling? I mean, a lot of the kids that you worked with and trained and had at camp are now in leadership positions.
Yeah.
Do you talk to them? Where are they?
We talk a lot. I think I'll give you one example and I'll move away.
Yeah, and then I want to get Imad's.
And he probably knows who I'm talking about. There's a gentleman named Dr. Saab Adicott. Saab was the chief negotiator for the Palestinians. Saab was like big brother, as was another woman from Israel. I mean, I had two people who really spent a lot of time explaining things to me. But Saab, his sons actually came to Maine, Kents Hill and Bridgeton Academy.
Oh, really?
So he had two kids actually, graduate from school here and graduate from Manhattanville. But Saab was back and forth here a lot. And he became not just, somebody I knew, but a friend. His wife, he died 2 years ago during the COVID thing. But his wife is very close to my wife, as well as he has twin daughters. I'm not going to go too far with this, but his one daughter is Zalal Erekat. And she's the spokesperson at UC on a lot of things. And she doesn't mess around.
And where was she a spokesperson?
She's the spokesperson for the PLO.
Where? Where does she speak?
She's on everything. She travels. She is the dominant person, I think, for young people in Palestine. She was the seed.
She was.
Is she now involved in what's going on over there?
She's involved because she's like the spokesperson. She's the one who's speaking to the EU. She's the one that you see. If you go to LinkedIn and you look her up and you follow, you get the message on her part.
So she's a primary player in this whole thing?
Oh, she's a primary, what I call spokesperson.
Well, I call
That's
her
a
a
great
player, you
example
call her a
of-
spokesperson.
Yeah.
Somebody who was connected to your program
And
and
well,
has gone on to a leadership role.
she's just unbelievable. Her sister is a premier
Right.
eye surgeon,
Mm-hmm.
and an unbelievable woman too. And her daughter came to Seed's camp last summer.
Nice.
So what I'm trying to say is this is going on. And on the other side, when you talk about Israel, there are kids. There's a young man who's one of the top news broadcasters in Israel.
And he was at Seeds with you?
He was with Seeds with me. Ariel Margalit, unbelievable. When they talk about what's going on out there, they do it with compassion. They explain in the best way they can from a humanistic point of view. You know, we can debate whatever happened on October 7th. That's one thing. But John Wallach wrote a book called "The Enemy Has a Face," and the kids relate to that.
Okay.
That are all human.
I really want to hear from Ahmed. Go ahead.
Imad, talk a little bit about, you know, you still have family there, and the impact that this war is having on your connections, your family, and you personally right now.
Yeah, I'll try to be as brief as possible.
No. Go ahead.
My family is from Jerusalem.
Right.
My brother, I've got a brother who lives in Ramallah, and I've got a brother who lives in California who works for the DOD, training generals and lieutenants on the Arabic culture when they go to Egypt, etc. This war, what's happening in Gaza is a cancer in my heart.
Yeah.
A cancer in your heart. Sure. That's how I feel, my friend. Go ahead.
I mean, they have got two extreme people, one from the Israeli side, corrupt and extremist, one from the Palestinian side, very extreme religious people who are trying to liberate Palestine by force and by whatever it is. The story starts from 1917. 1917, Balfour declared that the Jewish nation in Europe has the right to have a country called Israel in Palestine. That's the first step which went wrong. Second step, which we are paying for mostly, is the Holocaust and Nazism, which made the European Jews exodus to Palestine. So
Right.
the pre-1900s, it was 50% Muslims, 25% Christians, 25% Jewish.
Okay.
The Christians were living in Nazareth, Bethlehem. The Jewish were living in Tel Aviv, and the Muslims were living in Jerusalem, as well as Haifa, and not Haifa even, Jaffa mostly, and Gaza. Gaza. So from 40 to 47, the Jewish population increased from 25% to 50%. They came back from Europe highly educated, highly trained military, highly knowledgeable of the war actions. And in 1948, they went, massacred 50 villages, men and women. Around 1,500 people were massacred in 1948. 48. Go to the history, it goes to history. The Palestinians fled, some 750, it was 1 million, 750 of which fled to Gaza. Okay? And the remaining stayed in Jerusalem and East Jerusalem. So this is the story. I've got a map of 47 Palestine.
Yep.
We were a nation, we were a country, we were a currency, we were educated.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, no nation, no currency, nothing. They became Jordanian, became Israeli, it became the dinar, it became the shekel, not the shekel, it was at the time the Israeli. On a sudden, in one day, we lost everything. Now, differently from the Israeli part, the Israelis were lucky to have great leaders.
What did you say?
Great leaders.
Oh, great leaders, yes.
Ben Gurion,
Right.
Golda Meir. We had nothing. Palestinians, we had nothing.
Sure.
We had somebody called Ahmad Shukeri, who was talking. We had Arafat. I don't want to talk badly Arafat, but I can tell you his hands were bloody.
Arafat,
exactly.
yeah.
And then in 1987, who helped Hamas to support Hamas? Israel and the USA to weaken the PLO. It was a very simple equation.
And Netanyahu continues to do that.
I'm sorry, in 2 minutes I tried to...
No. The whole history of the Middle East.
I'd like to explain something to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been to Jerusalem a number of times, and the first time I went, I couldn't believe that you have a city, one section is Palestinian, then you got the Catholic section, then the Christians, then you got...
Christians are Palestinian.
What's that?
Christians are Palestinian.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you
justify.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And then you got the Jewish section, and you got these sections in the city, and they all live peacefully. And they got all the shops in the middle of Jerusalem. This one's run by so-and-so, this one's by... And they're all living peacefully within that city in these different sections. And what you're saying is people were able to sort of live peacefully. Now, by the way, you go to Jerusalem, ladies and gentlemen, this is back in 1985. There's a lot of military. There were machine guns everywhere. I don't care where you go, of course, now. And so you gave us a history of how this conflict just kept getting bigger and bigger, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay.
And I just want to add one thing.
Go ahead.
On this conflict. I want to add one thing on this conflict.
Yeah, please.
If you are a Jewish from New York, and if I open my mouth, don't accuse me of being anti-Semite. I'm not anti-Semite. Abraham had 2 kids, Ishmael and Israel. I am a descendant of Ishmael, and Israel are the Israelis.
Do you have Jewish friends here?
I have got plenty of Jewish friends in Israel.
You do too, right?
In Israel, I've got excellent friends who are Israelis. Israelis. Okay.
Yeah, because the difficulties over there.
Exactly.
There's not much difficulty here, right?
Let me continue what bothers me mostly. Any Jewish over here can go to Jerusalem and live in Jerusalem 2 seconds, takes a flight, he becomes he will be American, Israeli in Israel, and have a passport to live in Jerusalem. I am not allowed.
Not allowed
to go to Jerusalem. Because in 1971, 72, I left to France with a permit, and the permit said with a very fine lines, you have to go back 3 years afterwards to Israel to renew your permit of going out. I came back after 4 years. They sent me out of the bridge, Alambi, where the crossing was, and told me, go and renew your permit in Paris, where I was living. So I went to Paris, went to the Israeli embassy to renew my permit. After 3 months, I came back to tell them what's happening with my permit.
Yeah.
You have never given us a permit. We have never seen you. You are totally...
They didn't want you to go back.
No, but and today I cannot go back. I cannot live in Jerusalem.
So what would happen? What would happen if you flew to Tel Aviv and got off the plane?
From the airport, they're sending back to America.
Right back.
Maybe sometimes not even leaving the USA.
The discrimination is incredible. What the Palestinians have endured for generations and generations.
75 years.
I am not anti-Jewish whatsoever.
Right.
I'm not anti-Semite. I'm anti-Israeli extremists who have put rules and regulations to discriminate. The question is very simple. Occupier and occupied.
Yes.
Strong and weak.
My dear friend, I want to thank you because what you did for me was to explain to me the history of the discrimination that you folks have felt. And that discrimination reached a level where you just, quote, can't take it anymore. Rob?
And Tim, when you bring these kids together, the Palestinian boys and girls and the Israeli, you've got an occupier and the occupied. How do they communicate? How do they get along? How do you break down that barrier?
Simple. You have to, first of all, this again is simplicity. The parents I grew up with, we had a conversation. I started learning about the Middle East when I was 10 years old because of Ralph Bunche.
Right.
Yes.
And I know some of the things that were spoken about, I've heard. Okay, the other side of it is, I've traveled there before '67. I went from southern part of Aqaba to Petra by horseback with the Bedouins. What I'm saying is I got a taste of that world when I was young. Getting back to your question, it helps me when I'm talking with the kids because I can see when it's getting into, I'm going to tell my sorrow, and my sorrow is bigger than yours. And the idea is to realize, for the kids to realize the person sitting next to them, they didn't do They didn't do certain things. I don't care where you're coming from, whatever. They didn't do it. Take your time and find out about them. We say when we do this, we do dialogue.
Dialogue.
Every day. And we have been doing it that way since we started in '93. And we have people who come in and facilitate. The conversation gears up with things that I might say in the morning lineup. Biggest thing is God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. If he'd meant it the other way, it would have been the other way. So we work on listening skills.
2 ears and 1 mouth. I've never heard that saying before.
But we work on listening skills. You can scream over me, I'm not listening to you. But if you take your time, listen to what I have to say, and I listen to what you have to say, maybe we might just begin a beginning of understanding. The next thing is, from that, we work to allow kids to have that time in ways to talk about, just like it was presented, about his family and the things that are going on. We have kids who same situation in Palestine, but on the other hand, we have Israeli kids who are from certain parts of Israel who their parents were from the Holocaust, so they have certain things they bring.
Oh, yeah.
And the bottom line, though, you ask, we base everything on something called the stool. These 3 legs: trust, communication, and respect. 3 legs. Mm-hmm. And you work on that. The seat can be anything, even for us. You're married, your job, your whatever. The people you work with, this develops into a skill set.
Folks, I got to cut to the chase here. What I want to get to on this show is, I know the seeds of peace and all that. What the hell are we going to do about the unbelievable murder of children and women and men that don't even know what this is about? That is what's killing me. When you talk about the cancer in your heart, I cannot believe that this world cannot stop the killing of these children. And they brought 4 hostages back, great, and killed 200 people to do it.
Over 200 people.
And I want your feelings. I know we're doing seeds. I want to know the feelings that you have about what's happening to your people. What is the feelings about how do we stop killing these people?
Imad. It's very simple. If we resolve the history of the extremism, both sides,
right,
that will bring the people like me and my friends in Israel to sit down and make peace, the real peace, not the 1994 Oslo. The 1994 Oslo was a trap, did not work out. Itzhak Rabin was killed, was assassinated. He was the right person to do the peace and to lead us to peace. He was assassinated by an extreme Jewish person inside his own country. This is number one. And I think the USA, which is the master key country to resolve the problem, has to be unbiased vis-a-vis the Palestinians and unbiased vis-a-vis the Israelis.
Exactly.
What should the President of the United States, whether it be Trump, Biden, I don't care who it is, what should the President of the United States do on the election after election about this war, about this crap?
Unbiased, and have got the guts to tell whoever the Prime Minister of Israel and whoever is the leader of Palestinians, stop this or I will stop you differently.
I think Biden's trying to do that with
Not in the
Netanyahu.
beginning.
Is he doing strong?
What's that?
We don't agree on this one. But I'm a Democrat, a fervent Democrat.
I know you are.
And with Biden backing Israel in the beginning,
Right.
1,000% or
Yes,
1 million%, without paying attention to what happened to the Gazans, he paid for it and he's going to pay for it because there are 250,000 Palestinians in Michigan. I am one of them. But today I changed my mind because 2735 United Nations Steps for Peace, written by Biden and announced by Biden, I believe this is the right equation.
Right.
And you changed your mind about what?
I'm back going to vote for him.
You're going to vote for
Biden.
Biden. So you're sticking with Biden.
For 6 months I did not.
And so you don't think that Trump getting in there
he will destroy it more. He will destroy it more.
It'll be more?
He will destroy it more. Trump will kill it more, will increase the hatred. Trump moved the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is anti-international law. Yeah. He accepted the annexation of Golan Heights for Israel, which is an international law not to do so.
Right.
There is Jerusalem was never accepted as the capital of Israel for years by America,
right.
by Reagan, by Republicans as well as Bush, Eisenhower. Nobody accepted Tel Aviv to be because there were rules and fine red lines that the USA did not trespass. In the beginning, Biden did not listen, was too much pro-Israel. Today, he paid for it.
Oh, yes.
He paid for it because 37,000 killed. Under the rubble, we don't know how much.
Yeah, I know it.
70,000 injured, mutilated. 15,000 orphans.
Oh, my God.
40,000, 30,000 widows. It's all over the place.
And you lost friends.
I lost families and friends.
We all have.
We all have lost. And, there are young Israeli soldiers going there, blown up. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Imad, the reason why I keep interrupting is because
Don't worry.
You make comments, both of you, that are so cogent, so deep. I want to get into it. Approximately how many friends and family did you lose? I lost my brother and 2 Bowden friends this week, and it kills you. How many did you lose?
I lost 2 Khalidi families originally in Gaza.
And what happened to them?
Bombarded by the 2,000
and killed.
And the way the others are living. Look how the famine, starvation, the international law, the Nazis did the following: starvation.
Yep.
Yep.
That's right.
Starvation and occupation.
Occupation
of the Jewish nations in France as well as in anywhere else.
Oh, sure.
Israel. I can't understand one thing: a nation like Israel, who suffered from the Nazis, applies certain ways on the Palestinians. In 1987, I was invited by the Jewish community in Paris to talk about the peace. I told them, don't shake hands with Arafat, shake hands with Saeb Erekat.
Don't shake hands with Arafat.
Shake it with Saeb Erekat, the guy
who
because the ones who are inside, who went under the occupation, understood better the mentality of the Israelis to make peace.
Tim, what man do you think, Biden, Trump, whatever, can perhaps do it?
First of all,
you're not a political guy.
But it is politics.
But go ahead, though. You've got an opinion on it.
I'm an independent, have been since I came to Maine 60 years ago. And that's a whole other thing about my person, who I am, where I grew up with. I'm black. I'm a black American. I'm not African American. I'm a black American, an American who happens to be black. That influences me when I start talking about Palestine.
Yes.
That's why Saeb Erekat became a very, very close friend. I'm proud to. I mean, he would tell people when I came to Jericho, this is my brother. And people, because of the way I look, in Jericho, I fit right in.
Been to Jericho, by the way, for the place.
But anyway, getting to your question. People make peace. Leaders make war.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
And the kids and the people, the young people coming up, they'll determine what's going to happen next. There's one thing I'm going to say. I've grown up listening to my grandfather and my parents about things in this country. And the one thing my father always said is, if you aren't careful, you will breed young people who will be opposed to the things that you believe in if they're not educated and if they're not looked upon with respect. Now, what's going to happen in the Middle East, because of this war and all the people, I mean, I have a 97-year-old brother who fought in the Second World War. His point is this: what's left, even after they stop this, is all those orphans, all those people who are young. This is not going to stop the idea, oh, everything will be okay afterwards.
You're right.
It's not going to be that way.
No.
It's going to, I mean, I look at it this way. We'll be gone, okay?
Right. Long gone.
Well, long gone. Could be 100 years before they're able to do what they should have done a long time ago.
Yeah.
My dear friend, I wanted to do this show with my dear pal here because I wanted an answer from two people who had lived right in it.
Yes.
And what you're telling me is that it's going to take 100 years, a century, to come even close.
That's right.
Do you agree with that, Imad?
I agree totally with what two things he said.
You do agree?
Two things he said, which I agree. The orphans of today are going to be both sides. We are going to be the fighters between each other in 17 years. We know that 2005, 2024, the Hamas fighters are from the 2005 war. Orphans who joined Hamas because of that. And you can see that any soldier in Gaza who's dead, who dies, his kids are going to be haters of Palestinians. The hatred is going to continue on. That's the number one. And I agree with you, it's between people that I agree with, no problem on 100 years. I have no doubt in my mind. I will be gunned, my kids will be gunned. There is a generation in 100 years. I hope one thing in life. We get attacked by aliens so that we all people get...
We'll be one.
There is no Trump, there is no Biden.
Yes.
I can't believe you just said that. Because I often have thought to myself, we've all thought, if in fact we hear God's voice from above, or Jesus walks on, or anybody, Buddha, comes alive, this is the way it's going to be. And you're saying, we have aliens show up, and all of a sudden we're all united, right?
Just like we'll have snitches for the aliens.
I want to say to both of you that you're talking about, you focus on youth, and we all know that when something happens to you, traumatizes you as a child. I lost my dad at age 12. And basically people say, Derry's still 12. You go back to capture that youth. So the orphans you're talking about, the people, the kids, imagine a child there in Gaza, Rafah.
Both sides.
Both sides, whatever. And they're living this horrible life at age 12, 10, 11. That's all they can think about. Now, all of a sudden, they become an adult, like me. I'm still going back to age 12, getting to know Brenda Lee and Bobby Rydell, because you want to recapture that. And what you're telling me is that it can't change because the children are eventually going to be men and women, correct?
Correct.
I remember talking to George Mitchell when he was appointed.
He tried to bring peace.
He did. He was appointed by Barack Obama to be a Middle East peace envoy. And I remember you...
Barack Obama by Clinton also.
By Clinton, too. That's correct.
Yes.
I met George with Elliot Cutler at his house talking about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It's like...
We had hope.
Right.
Exactly. When George Mitchell was appointed, we had hope.
But I remember congratulating him, and he was on his way getting sworn in, and he was getting ready to take on this other mission after he had negotiated the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland, which bringing Catholics and Protestants together after centuries of discrimination. You talk about the occupied and the occupier. Northern Ireland is a great example of that. George said he was not hopeful. He was not hopeful when I was talking to him. He said, this has gone on for thousands of years.
Correct.
And it's... But he ended up meeting with Assad in Syria and Lebanon and Jordan and Israel, Netanyahu, and it was just almost an impossible task because Netanyahu now has held on to power, and I think it's clear to everybody, he has no desire to have a two-state solution.
No desire.
The Mitchell principles that George came out with are dust right now, as long as he is in office. How, from your Israeli connections, how do they feel about Netanyahu?
Anti-Netanyahu.
What's that?
Good question.
My friends,
Yes.
Israelis, are first of all left.
Okay.
Like me. They are totally anti-Netanyahu, 100%. But the Labour Party in Israel weakened so much after Yitzhak Rabin was killed.
Yeah.
Okay. Ehud Barak did try to replace it. It wasn't the charisma that Rabin had. And after that, nobody came in. And today, the center is okay, but the left has nobody.
Go ahead, Tim.
The one thing, again, you have to understand, what's enjoyable for me is having someone speak to history that I learned from other people, and he's just speaking to it. It's like being in a
Well, he's lived
classroom.
it.
And so he is.
Yes.
It's just like having someone like Gerald Talbot speak about black people
Sure.
in
Sure.
Maine. He lived it.
Exactly.
So that's the important part of this.
Right.
My view, when I talk about this from here, it's real simple for me. And that is the Yitzhak Rabin, who I had the chance.
To me.
Yeah. Yitzhak Rabin, his death was, if you go back and do your homework, you realize the Netanyahu people, it's that word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
The person who killed him is a part of that group. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so they kill him. So from him, you had this here that went here.
Right.
And it's been there.
Yes.
You know, there were times when it started moving up, and then the settlers and the right, I call them the black hats, they took over. They wiped out whole groups of people. Right now, you have people who may have their heart in the Israeli side.
Mm-hmm.
They're having a hard time with people who teach. You better do certain things a certain way, even if you're Israeli and you don't tout what the head person in charge is talking about. You can lose your job.
In Israel.
In Israel? Does that sound familiar?
Yes,
Yeah.
Tim.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All I'm trying to say is back to what I said to you before. It really is going to come down to people.
Yes.
See, I'm not talking about left, right. I'm talking about people being genuine, honest, ethical, and be responsible, being the best human beings they can be. The problem is we're not being the best human beings we
That's
can
for
be.
sure.
And we've lost some things that I know his family tried to teach him when he was young. You know, I know your family, your mother and father used to feed my teams.
Yeah.
And so I'm going back to history. It's like Bill Cohen. People, I had that opportunity in this state to see people who were real. George Mitchell had I don't want to get into the story, but George used to come and we'd spend time talking about this issue because he was a part of Seeds of Peace too.
It sure was.
And his ideas, he had me in Ireland in 2000.
He did.
You went to Ireland?
Oh, I was in
my
Ireland
God,
in 2000
fantastic.
because of George.
Yeah.
He sent me to spend time with some of the women who got out of prison and educational stuff. Never mind. I want to get to the point to you guys.
Yes.
I applaud what you have us here doing.
Yeah.
This is important.
People have to understand. I'm not going to stand here and say to you, to people about Israel, look, I have friends on both sides.
Right.
Kids on both sides.
As does Imad.
I have kids who had to serve in the military. I've had kids who work for me who would put their arms down in one room of the center in Jerusalem, put their green shirts on to be a part of a program. Okay? That happened.
Oh, just blowing me away.
That happened. And there are people who are now working to keep kids working at stuff. They have to do it in a unicameral way. They want to do bicameral stuff. They can't.
What do you mean bicameral?
Yeah.
Between Palestinians and
Oh,
Israelis.
yes. Yeah. Gotcha.
They now are doing, it's even difficult in Israel because you have the Palestinian Israelis who carry what they call the blue card. And then you turn around and you have Ramallah, and I've got people in Ramallah who are Christian who are telling me the things that are going on in Ramallah between the IDF and the settlers.
Yeah.
Well, there's no conversation about that and there should be conversation because people are losing their lives. I guess what I'm trying to say is what I said to you before. We're in bad shape here.
Bad shape where?
In this country.
In the U.S.
In the U.S. because we got caught up in the anti-Semitism.
Yes.
And at the same time, there are people who don't understand the things they need to understand before they open their mouths.
Well, they don't want to bother.
Oh, they're just, it's like,
Tim,
it's a Coca-Cola.
Nobody wants to learn.
No.
People should be watching the show, but they're not going to want to bother. They want to take their viewpoint. By the way, I just want to say one thing, because I want this show not to be so serious. You made a comment a few minutes ago about your family used to feed my teams. I want the audience to know you're talking about the Baldacci restaurants.
That's right.
Where the football teams and the bad, they go down to the Baldaccis to get a decent meal before they play football the next day. I just wanted the audience to know that.
Appreciate the plug.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
Well,
at least
they have to know that
from
you and
wars
Pat,
to charity.
Yeah, that's right.
You
Thank
and Pat's Pizza fed all of Penobscot County. Go ahead, let's move on. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, but, since you brought that up, but it is important because his parents, I mean, if I told you the stories about his parents and my wrestling teams or my football teams, and we were going to play on the other side, going down to, in the other part of Penobscot County, or we were in Hamden playing, and we'd stop with the kids coming back and feed them to go home back to Dexter. If I told you how many times that happened, or when I was at UMaine, and the main team, I'd bring the whole football team over after we played somewhere.
Sure.
And the freshmen.
Timmy's been advisor to governors since Ken Curtis, every governor.
Who I love, Ken Curtis.
Republicans,
we love Joe Brennan,
Democrats,
we
and
loved all of them.
independents.
I've had it's like a guy who was in the legislature at the time I was there. When I first got to Dexter, and we won our first football championship in 1969.
Class S?
Yeah, no, then it was C.
UC, okay.
Okay. And we won, a couple of years in a row in football.
You beat Orono.
Yep.
My team.
All right. We ought to focus back on
I know.
Gaza,
Yeah,
but this
okay.
has been fun.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know how much more time we have.
About 10 minutes, I think.
About 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Imad and Tim, as we sit here today, the bombs continue to fly. Netanyahu is still holding on to control. Biden is trying to come up with a settlement. He and his Secretary of State have spent countless trips, hours and hours and hours, dealing with all of Arab countries and Israel. Do you think anything is going to be able to develop here in terms of a peace settlement?
May I come back to the story of anti-Semitism in this country?
Okay, please.
There are two types of anti-Semitism in this country. The supremacist whiteists who are taking this Palestinian Gaza issue as an opportunity to increase anti-Semitism. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I don't think that when we talk, we are anti-Semitic. But every time I open my mouth, I'm accused to be anti-Semitic. I cannot be anti-Semitic. Am I anti-Zionist? Yes. Am I anti-Semitic? I'm not. I cannot be anti-Semitic. I've got two problems, and here I really want to talk
let's talk about this.
The extreme right in Israel, the religious extreme right in Israel, says they are the chosen people of God. Is that discrimination? That's number one. Secondly, there are 1.2 million 1948 Palestinians who stayed in Israel, and they are a part of the Israeli community. They call them Arab Israelis. They don't call them Palestinian because the word Palestinian was supposed to be erased from the dictionary. We are today between West Bank, Gaza, and those guys, 5 million people. Netanyahu and his team wants to change the state of Israel into the Jewish state of Israel. It's as if you are saying this is the Maine is the American Catholic or Protestant state of Maine.
Okay.
Those things has to stop from their side so that we are not accused of anti-Semitism. It's anti-Zionism.
Anti-Zionism.
I'm anti-Zionism. Zionism wants. There is one thing more which is going to be important for me to say.
Go ahead.
In 1948, when Israel took over the part of Israel, all their leaders, one by one, I've got 100 quotes, which said, from the sea to the river.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the river does not limit them to the Jordan River because there is the Furat and the Tiger, which is more than that. We say from the river to the sea, in counterpart of what they say, because we limit ourselves to the sea, and we don't say, which I can confirm that Israel exists.
Yeah.
There is no way it will go away anywhere.
Right.
That we exist. There is no way we can go anywhere. It's high time that this becomes not Jewish state of Israel, not the chosen people of God, the real democratic people of the Near East.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to add on.
That
It really bothers me, the Jewish state of Israel, as well as the chosen people of God.
And, repeat your question, Rob, please.
Yeah, no, I think Imad has
He's answered.
brought up an interesting point, because you mentioned the anti-Semitism that's
Right.
going on, but it works both ways.
Yeah.
Because I grew up, I'm half Lebanese. My grandparents immigrated from Lebanon in
So
the
our
early
blood is very
90s.
common, you and I.
Absolutely.
We're neighbors like Canadians and Americans.
That's right. But my sittu, my grandmother used to tell me how the Israelis, when they established Israel, would drive out the Palestinians and the Arabs from their homes.
Just drive them right out.
Pushed them right out.
Get out of here.
Massacre them.
And the massacre and killing.
Is a well-known.
So that's what I grew up with.
So you already heard it as a young boy.
I was a young boy, and to hear you, who you've lived it, and you've been over there and experienced the atrocities and on both sides. I mean, no one can condone what Hamas did in October.
I condemn Hamas.
Absolutely.
Hamas had no right to kill innocent Israeli people in the 1,200, had no right to do that.
Right.
By Quran, by their religion, it's forbidden to do that, massacre children and youth. If they had a fight, soldier to militia, I have no problem with that.
Right.
That fight became dirty. I might pay for that because if, sometimes Hamas can reach me, whatever it is, I don't care. At this point, I don't care.
Go ahead.
Hamas had no right to do what has happened.
Right.
It killed 1,200. But Israel, 1 to 4, the equation is 1 to 4.
Yeah.
1 to 40, sorry, not 1 to 4, 1 to 40.
1 to 40.
Yeah, 1,200 killed from the Israeli
Yes.
side. We are at 37,000.
Yes.
Maybe to 40.
And growing.
It's 1 killed from
Right.
the Israeli side, 40 from the Palestinian side, plus 500,000 houses.
Yes. Ahmad, I say to people, when we got attacked on 9/11, 3,000 people were killed, and we retaliated appropriately as we could, but we didn't go over and kill 500,000 innocent people. We tried to target, we go after Osama bin Laden, and 3,000 people were killed, and that's what concerns me too. That was a horrible thing that happened in October, but now you really, there's a man I know, a couple cats ran across his deck, and he shoots them both. Now, come on. I have to say to you, you just spoke it so well. You decry what happened on that day, but you're saying, okay, enough is enough. Very well spoken, my friend.
I want to add on.
We have 4 minutes, and we can't have long answers now.
I want to add one thing on what you are saying. We lost 4,000 and 3,000 in 9/11, but we lost another 4,000 of our young kids going to Baghdad as well as
Afghanistan.
to
That's right.
Iraq.
While it took us 5-7 people to kill Osama bin Laden and finish with it.
Exactly.
So why don't, and I cannot say it loudly, why don't we go after the Sinwar from one side and the settlers from the other side instead of going through the whole nations?
Which is, amen.
Both.
I agree with
Both
you.
sides. If Sinwar was the wrong guy, I don't know. I'm not saying this is wrong or this is right. In what the Obama did is kill the source, which is Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
And that's what Netanyahu should be doing, but
But
he's not.
Israel keeps saying, we killed 3,000 innocent people to get the bad guy, not really realizing the bad guy's got replacements to walk right in the door again. That's what bothers me. They go, well, we got that bad guy, but of course we killed 300 kids that were doing it. That's
I'm
what
not comparing Al Qaeda to what's happening. I'm comparing the way to deal with things.
Yes, I agree.
Tim, how do you react?
The only thing I have to say is people need to go and do a little fact checking. But Something
what?
came up the other day. Queen Elizabeth, as you know, never visited Israel. People should go.
I didn't know that.
People should go and find out why she didn't visit Israel.
Well, do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's simple fact of what
Very
happened.
short. I mean,
We're short 48, and the number of British that were killed.
I got
King
you.
David, the Haganah and the Irgun.
Say that again?
The Haganah and the Irgun were as terrorists, even worse terrorists than Hamas.
That's
They
right.
put a bomb in King David, the Israeli, the Jewish Haganah and the Irgun. Shimon, what's his name? Begin.
Begin,
was the
Menachem
leader.
Begin.
Yeah, right,
Put a
yeah.
bomb in King David Hotel, which killed 47.
Which I've been to, by the way, King David.
Yeah, 47 ranked British people. But what did the British do? They left the country and they left both fight each
They
other.
did this, halas, end of it.
Interesting.
And
That's
so,
an interesting.
so again, there's see the history of that world. And I'll quit with this one. I was in a meeting in Mubarak's office, President Mubarak's in Egypt, and a man who was part of the Arab League was sitting beside me, knew me. He says, "You know what this is about?" And I said, "You tell me." It's the Crusades all over again.
Agreed.
He said it's the Crusades all over again. By the way, gentlemen,
Except who's leading the Crusades?
That's
Give me one war, bloody war, which is not led by religion. Give me one.
I know. No, you can't.
Well,
You
the
can't.
Crusaders, the Irish,
Yeah.
the Palestinians,
Oh, yeah.
the Indians and the Muslims,
yeah.
that's coming up again.
In India.
Oh yeah.
the Miramar is religious.
Yeah.
Folks, we're going to close it up.
Sure.
I want to say to you two gentlemen, two of the brightest men I've ever listened to, extremely brilliant. Your history is, I mean, let's face it, you could come on this show for about 10 hours and tell us what you've done. And you, sir, I congratulate you for coming over here and turning
With
your
nothing
business
and
into
building up.
such a success. And now you're bringing in people to recover. I can't thank you enough for being on it. By the way, you certainly enlightened me. I came here to be enlightened, and you did.
Amen.
People may wonder, how come we didn't have any Jewish people on the show, whatever. We were going to, but I'm going to tell you something. I'm glad we did not.
Right.
And I was going to mention some of my dear friends that are going through the difficulty with anti-Semitism here, but I did not, because you covered the bases today.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you about our next show. E-vehicles, electric vehicles. I just leased a brand new F-150 Lightning truck. It's the greatest thing I've ever owned. So Rob and I are going to be doing a 1-hour documentary on electric vehicles. And that's going to be our next show. We're going to send it off to wherever we can. I think it's a very important topic right now because I'm going to tell you something. They're safe, they're efficient, and I'm going to try to make the case for electronic vehicles. Rob, thank you for setting this together.
Buddy.
Appreciate it. And we'll see you next month on
Thank you.
Rundlett and Baldacci Report. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
Great.